Hello and welcome to the Karpfucius Says Podcast, the show where we talk about anything and everything related to living a more purposeful and empowered life. I am your host, Michael Karp, aka Karpfucius. Okay, so in today's episode, we are going to be talking about first versions versus finished products. Here's what you're going to learn. You will learn about one of the biggest reasons people don't start doing what they really want to do in their lives and how to avoid this yourself. You will also learn the difference between first versions and finished products and why this is important. And you will learn how to get started doing what you want to do no matter how far along in the journey you are. Let's dive in. But first, are you feeling lost or stuck right now? Are you feeling like your life doesn't have the purpose or direction you really want it to have? Then I highly recommend checking out my new book, The Purpose Discovery System. This book will walk you through everything you need to find your life purpose, define it with clarity, and make a plan to follow it, even if you're totally lost right now and have no clue what to do with your life. If you're interested, you can check out the book by clicking the link in the show notes or in the podcast description. Your purpose awaits. All right, so people often don't start doing what they really want to do in their lives because they're comparing themselves to finished products when really they are at the first version stage of whatever journey they're on. So they see the distance between them and someone else, and it makes them feel bad. And then they don't start or they stop shortly after they begin. So the issue with this is that we're playing this comparison game. We're playing the compare and contrast with someone that maybe has inspired you to do something, but the gap between you and them is so big that it makes you feel smaller. And this feeling, for certain people, it feels bad, and they don't like feeling bad, and so sometimes they don't even start doing what they want to do because they're feeling so bad about it. Here's the thing. By the time you're following someone, they are probably a finished product already, right? By the time someone has inspired you to do something, they are probably way far along in the journey of development. For example, let's say you want to start a YouTube channel, right? And you've been inspired by all these other YouTube channels and you really want to start a YouTube channel, but you're at the very beginning. You have no subscribers, you have no audience, you're getting maybe 10 views per video, and this doesn't feel so good, right? Because you're looking at the people that have inspired you, and they're getting tens of thousands of views, they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they're already a finished product. However, everyone who gets started at anything is usually a first version, right? First versions are like the first YouTube videos someone ever posts, or the first blog post someone ever writes, or the first podcast episode someone ever records, right? So if you go back, and this podcast is still in its first version, but if you go back and you look at the first episodes versus the last few episodes, you're going to see some changes. You're going to see some improvements. The first episodes of this podcast were the very, very first version, right? I was still figuring out a structure. I was still finding my voice and still learning how to flow and how to think on the fly and all that type of stuff. So the first version can be the first version of some sort of like creative social media type of thing, or it can even be the first business someone starts, or the kid who's just learning how to play a sport, or the first time you're learning a new skill. So essentially, first versions are white belts or yellow belts. And a lot of people are comparing themselves to black belts and grandmasters when they are really at the beginning of the learning process and the beginning of that whole journey. The good news is that you can level up very quickly. Right? It all depends. Just because you are a first version or you haven't even gotten started yet that doesn't mean that you are incredibly far away from where you want to be. Like, depending on what it is and depending on who you are and depending on your personality and things of that nature, you can actually level up very, very quickly. Or it can take a lot of time and devotion to develop yourself into a black belt or master or finished version. So it really depends. But it's okay and good to be a first version, a white belt in the beginning. Don't let that stop you from getting started. You will grow and improve into a finished product along the way. There are so many things that I have started where I technically was not ready yet. I technically was a very, very, very first version, right? Not really anywhere close to a finished product. And if I had compared myself to those finished products and felt bad about it and said, I'm so far away from where I want to be that I'm not even going to get started, that I never would have even given myself a chance to develop into who I really wanted to be and do what I really wanted to do in my heart and in my soul and what was calling from within me, following that inspiration. So I make sure, even if I am at the very beginning of something and I'm very, very far away from where I want to be, I don't let that stop me from getting started. I still go because it's what I want. And I don't mind being a first version. I don't mind being a white belt in something. It doesn't hurt my pride. It doesn't hurt my ego. In fact, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, the key is to enjoy it. Enjoy being a first version, enjoy being a white belt, and enjoy the learning process. So the way to start doing what you really want to do, no matter how far along in the journey you are, is to enjoy being a first version. Enjoy being a white belt, enjoy the learning process, love the growth. And trust yourself to improve and develop over time. The thing is, you will improve and develop over time. It's a natural human instinct. You will notice adjustments you can make, you will learn from others, and people will give you feedback. I think sometimes a lot of people don't trust, especially if they've started something, they've been working on it for a little bit, and it isn't growing as fast as they want it to. Sometimes they don't trust that eventually it'll hit a point where it's going to take off. And so they stop, they get discouraged. And if we do that, we're not even giving ourselves enough of a chance to really succeed at it and to really allow ourselves to develop enough into a finished product. You may have gone from white belt to yellow belt to orange belt, and then at orange, you've been in orange for a while, things aren't really growing fast enough, and you want to be already at brown and red, and then you just stop. And then you're no belt anymore. You don't have a belt because you've completely stopped the training. You've completely stopped the learning process. And it's something that has held way too many of us back from doing what we really want to do in our lives. So trust that if you are in the early stages, right, if you are still a first version, trust that you will continue to develop into a finished version and a finished product over time, right? So one of the biggest things that it's very ego related, right? People will, especially as you start to do something and people start to notice, they're going to give you feedback, right? Some of it will be very positive and very constructive, and some of it might be negative and not super constructive. The key here is to not take any of it personally. Put your pride aside and take it as the universe helping you do what you want to do at higher and higher levels. So people, when I started creating content on social media, I started an Instagram account that was not my personal account. It was more of like a motivation, inspiration sort of account, and it started to gain traction. I started getting feedback. Started getting feedback from followers. I started getting feedback from my friends and people telling me their opinion. And some of it I took and I was like, okay, this doesn't, I don't necessarily agree with what they're saying, but a lot of it was to help me. A lot of it was to help me grow and develop. Like my friend once told me like, hey, you should try taking this image, like these images from here and then put text over that and then yada, 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 right? Or my friends was like, try to be more natural on camera, right? And I'm like, okay, a little bit it hurts your ego, but then you take it as constructive feedback to help you get better, right? If people are giving you feedback, that's a good sign. It means people are paying attention, right? And there's something inside of them that's saying, hey, let me help this person somehow. Don't worry about how it's being told to you. Focus more on the value that it can provide if you apply what they're saying, right? Can it really make you better? If so, do it. Put your pride aside, put your ego aside, and allow people to give you feedback, because it's one of the ways that you're going to grow faster and faster and faster. The more you allow feedback from others, the more information you're going to have to improve and get better. So, over time, you will develop into a finished product. Sometimes it happens very quickly, sometimes it takes a long time, but over time you're going to develop into a finished product and you'll look back on the journey with pride and gratitude for everything it took you to get there. Don't compare yourself too much to finished products when you are still a first version. Use them as inspiration, but don't let the gap between you stop you from making a start. Love and enjoy the learning process, and you will improve and develop over time. And if people give you constructive feedback, don't take it personally. Take it as the universe helping you do what you want to do at a higher and higher level. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast on first versions versus finished products. If you are a first version, the number one thing, don't let it stop you from doing what you really want to do. Do what you want to do. Go for it. Enjoy being a white belt. It's perfectly okay. Every time you start something new, you're going to be a white belt or a yellow belt or an orange or whatever. It's a part of the process. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. And go for what you want in life. It is so, so, so worth it. All right. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. And one more thing. Are you trying to find your life purpose? Are you trying to figure out what you really, really are passionate about in life and what you really want to do with your life? If you're looking for this type of clarity, then I highly recommend checking out my new book, The Purpose Discovery System. It will walk you through a 5-step process to find your life purpose, define it with clarity, and make a plan to follow it, even if you have no clue where your life is going right now. If you're interested, go ahead and click the link in the show notes or in the podcast description. Your purpose awaits.